God, in his ultimate grace and strength, decides to check up on Hiraku. He admits that he is God and he stands supreme over everything. And despite all of his supreme nature, there are also times when he makes mistakes. He admits to his fallibility and says that in the case of Hiraku, his fallibility had allowed him mistakenly to give him a life where he would be known for just hardship. A life of that, just for sinners, despite the fact that Hiraku is just an innocent man. He claims he couldn't interfere in the life he had offered Hiraku because, despite being God, there was a limit to his grace and righteousness. So he cannot intrude into the life of a person who has been sent to the world already. As a result, he stayed calm and watched as Hiraku suffered in the world of sinners, despite being a man with no sin accounted to his life. Eventually, Hiraku dies, and as the merciful father that God thinks he is, he decides to apologize to Hiraku for the Messiah's stake in the production process. He had decided that he would fulfill Hiraku's wish of being incarnated as a farmer in a different world. I think luck and favor aren't words that align with Hiraku's destiny, and at least it won't be the fault of the sovereign being who had decided to do him a favor. God, while looking through his globe to see where Hiraku is, admits he is the one in charge of souls, and he controls them. I mean, that's what God is for. He unfortunately sees that Hiraku has been reincarnated into a world where there is no living being to be a farmer. A lonely world with just deadly animals and plain ground, and he is there all alone. Remember what I said about luck and favor not being Hiraku's forte? Because why in the name of God should an apology from God lead to another calamity? Anyways, God feels terrible for his action, although it isn't purposeful, and he isn't intentional. In fact, the paternalistic feature of the heavenly being attempts to help Hiraku by taking him out of that life that he is presently in. But God remembers that he cannot mess with the journey of a human when they have been sent to earth. He finds out that Hiraku is at the Valley of Death. Yes, the Valley of Death. Yes, and incarnated being incarnated into the Valley of Death. Double injury. He eventually concludes that since he can't take Hiraku away, he is very sure that Hiraku will die in that valley that he is in. He will return back to him, and when Hiraku returns to him, he will apologize to Hiraku and send him to another world. Trust me, you don't want to be in Hiraku's position right now. Anyways, when life gives you a lemon, people will say you can make it a lemonade. In fact, Hiraku doesn't know that his existence in the world in which he presently exists is risky to him and his soul. He decides to make lemonade from the world of lemon. And since he is a farmer who has been granted divine strength and grace by God, he uses his powers to farm. He realizes that after sprouting a part of the land, the plant, he thinks about coming out. He is trying to juxtapose what power it is, especially since he doesn't know the crops as a baby. So he thinks of soybeans, which will be quite easy to recognize as a little seed. He finds out he gets everything he desires. At least one advantage of being in a world that nobody wants. He says that he has decided to farm with his powers, and he has also raised a statue of God on his farm. The reason being that he realizes it's the grace of God which had availed him the opportunity to be in that place at that moment. If only he really knew. Hiraku makes his dinner from dead animals and he serves the gods which he had saved earlier. He realizes the food he is eating is without taste, considering that the meal was made without any seasoning. But he had also realized that the absence of seasoning doesn't really affect the meat because he had drained it immediately after they were killed. He still wishes for seasoning, so the following day he decides to farm for fruit. He thinks of the different fruits he wants and then makes a bed for them with the hopes that when the fruits enter his food, it will be more pleasing and palatable to the soul. He does this because he doesn't find salt. He misses the usage of salt, and that's the only regret he has of the entire area he is in at the moment. He thinks of what to do after he has finished planting several fruits to ensure his taste buds increase a little. He plays with one of the puppies and throws a ball into the sky for the puppy to catch. The atmosphere there is eventually becoming calm and livable for a human, and he loves his new life. He sees that some weird horns are growing on the puppies, and he assumes that that is how puppies are in that world. He sees other puppies longing for his touch, and they also want to play with him. One advantage of living with puppies is that you can't get misplaced. Their fast-smelling scent will always keep a trail of their hut and take them back home. With the help of the puppies, he walks around the forest, trying to explore the forest more and see what could be more beneficial to him. He eventually finds a stream of water in the woods. He's glad because he really could use a water stream at that moment. The place where he has seen the water is about 30 kilometers from where his hut is, and he had decided that he would dig a path to get the water to his hut. The work may take him a long period of time. As a result, he built a toilet by the river since he may be staying there for the next few days. He has fun by turning one of his powerful instruments into a wheel, which he uses to ride one of his puppies to the river. He does that happily, one day, until he enters a porthole that falls both himself and the puppy. He decides that if he wants to do something like that, he will have to repair the road first. Hiraku is tired. He thinks of how long he has spent in that forest, and how he has no human friends. Gradually, the snow sets in. He feels very cold, and his clothes are not helping matters. He decides to make fur from dead rabbits, but that attempt is futile because the rabbits are decaying and they stink. And he couldn't find himself in the clothes. He resigns to fate and he sets a fire in his hut to keep him warm while he thinks of what to do. He meets a spider who uses his strength to make a handkerchief for him. He is amazed to see someone who can make him clothes, and he asks the spider to make him a cardigan. He also makes several covers for his bed and the windows, and he is ready for the snow. He decides to name the spider Zebeto, and he becomes closer to Zebeton. Eventually, the winter sets in completely. The winter sends cold into the hut, and he is concerned that it may break his hut. His puppies stay in the hut to stay warm, while Zebeton remains on her tree without interfering. He's still concerned about the absence of salt, as it doesn't give him the opportunity to make the type of food he wants to make. And he's also getting lonely. He comments that he hasn't spoken with a person in months, and he fears that as time goes on, he won't be able to speak again. Eventually, the winter crawls away, and thankfully it doesn't destroy his hut or harm his puppies. Growing up, he realizes the puppies are completely different. They will suddenly run into the forest, and he doesn't know what they're doing there. Seeing them grow is something that has made him feel great joy, as well as sadness. After several days, the puppies return back. I don't know why and how he still refers to them as puppies despite their fearful look, but he calls them his puppies. He finds out that they had all gone into the forest to find a partner for themselves. And he sees that one of his puppies is returning home tired and angry. He assumes that he had fought for his partner. Also, he sees another surprise that he isn't prepared for. It's Zebeton. He sees Zebeton with several baby spiders, and realizes that she is female. Although he's happy for all of his animals, he's also jealous that at least they have partners to talk with. But here he is with no one, and that also means one thing, which is more mouths to feed and more work to do. He gets to action immediately, and he starts cultivating. He suddenly hears Zebeton ringing the warning bell. He assumes that something is wrong, and one of his puppies also comes to call his attention. He leaves what he's doing and attends to whatever emergency it may be. He sees a young girl beside the tree. She's scared and she calls for his help. So he goes to meet her. She suddenly jumps at him and sucks his blood. Suddenly, she becomes an adult and gets very big. He's amazed at this sight and he tries to talk to her, but she insults the dog and they bounce on her the second time. They all hit her around and she gets small again. Hiraku stops the dogs. He asks her if she is his enemy or his friend so he will know what to do with her. She tells him she isn't his enemy. He asks why she sucked his blood and she tells him it's because she is weak and the animals have taken all her strength, which is why she is small. He offers her his blood again so that she can get bigger. She starts sucking his blood, but he notices that he isn't feeling anything or feeling numb. He assumes it's because he eats good. After she is done sucking, she tells him she hasn't taken much healthy blood in a while, and he takes her into his home. She sees all his plants, and she is shocked that a plantation that is as good as that can be in the forest. She sees the tomato and she doesn't recognize it. He realizes she doesn't know what a tomato is, so he brings out his scissors and cuts one for her to eat. As she takes a bite out of it, she says that the texture of it is nice and it tastes very good. Hiraku is glad to see someone commend him, since he has started living in that world. He takes her around his entire plantation and he shows her several other plants like the cassava, which they eat together, and many more. After a long day of exploring the farm, the girl is so glad she has visited. She tells him she is Lulu Lucy, and she's a vampire. She tells him she is a researcher who researches about plants, and she has never seen plants like the ones at his place. She tells him that she is being chased by a noble who wants to take her research. She tries to run away, and they send a person to her, so she enters the forest. She asks him how he can tame the animals, but he doesn't even know they are wild. She asks if he could permit her to visit again, but he begs her to stay with him there. He begs her to stay with him forever and says he always had never liked staying with people, and he had always wanted to be alone. But now he is lonely. She mistakes his words for a proposal and asks that they don't know each other. He tells her that they could get to know each other as time goes on, and he is also fine with her being chased. When he realizes she has mistaken his words for a proposal, he indeed proposes to her, and when she accepts, he jumps at her. She tells him to stop, claiming they have to take it slowly as they don't know each other yet. The following day, she meets him at the farm and greets him. He says that he didn't know just a good morning could make him that happy. He realizes that she is smaller, and he asks her why. She claims she had become smaller to ensure he doesn't touch her, and she asks if they could plant medicines. He accepts her proposal, and she wonders where they will find seeds. But he tells her that he doesn't need seeds. He proceeds to help her plant the